Who is Marika? Why did she do that? Who's that? What's happening? Today we will do a refresher on the Elden Ring timeline, focusing on family. This is going to be my retelling and interpretation of the events. The evidence I'll use to support my claims will appear in the bottom corner for reference as I go, things like item descriptions, dialogue, and if there isn't anything here, I made it up. So let's begin with a crucial character and catalyst for most of the events in the game, and that is Marika. Marika hails from beyond the Lands Between, where our game unfolds. She belongs to a race known as the Newman, indicating that she is not native to this place. Upon her arrival in the Lands Between, Marika was chosen to be a vessel of the Elden Ring, making her the God Queen of the Lands Between. The Greater Will, a powerful entity, saw Marika as a potential host for this Elden Ring. The Greater Will had previously sent a golden shooting star to the Lands Between, which brought a cosmic creature known as the Elden Beast. This creature embodies the concept of order, its sole purpose being to uphold the law. At some point, the Elden Beast transformed into a more tangible, pocket-sized form, the Elden Ring. With its immense power, this ring found its home within Marika, making her its vessel. Accepting the Elden Ring within her, Marika ascended to become the face of the Lands Between, its ruler, and the revered and worshipped deity. As Marika oversaw the Lands Between, she encountered someone called Godfrey. He was a massive, strong warrior, and Marika wanted a bit of that for herself. I mean, hey, who can blame her? That is a whole lot of man. So, regardless of any romantic reasons, Marika saw potential in him. He was the perfect candidate for her conquering agenda. So Marika made Godfrey her consort. By the way, he's not called King Godfrey, because according to British sovereignty rules, if a reigning queen gets married, her husband does not automatically become king. Traditionally, the king will outrank the queen, so it doesn't really make sense for the one marrying into royalty to usurp their royal partner. To become a king is usually an inherited title upon the death of the previous reigning monarch. Anyway, upon their union, Godfrey received the title of Elden Lord, who's actually the first Elden Lord. But to do so, he had to promise something first. Godfrey agreed to bear the mighty lion beast called Serosh on his shoulders. The purpose of Serosh was to act as a limiter for Godfrey's bloodlust, suggesting that Godfrey was a wild, ferocious beast himself who Marika wanted to tame. So then let's get to why that is. Marika commanded Godfrey to lead a war against the giants, enormous red-haired beings found in the north. The giants, specifically fire giants, had access to a powerful, unextinguishable flame. Once Godfrey and his army successfully wiped out all but one of the fire giants, Marika cursed the survivor to tend to the flame forever and guard it against anyone else trying to harness it. The reason for this curse was strategic. This fire is the only thing capable of burning the Erd Tree. The Erd Tree, the giant golden tree seen everywhere, symbolises the Elden Ring's presence and spreads the current order. At the end of the game, you choose how the combination of runes you have collected should affect the Erd Tree, thereby determining the New World Order. The Erd Tree projects this new decree out everywhere and shapes the world accordingly. The Erd Tree was born during the war against the giants, but it did exist before this point. It was called something different. It's more primordial, a source of life energy called the Crucible. Marika transformed it into the Erd Tree, utilising it to spread her agenda, which is why it's also called the Heart of the Golden Order, symbolising Marika's beliefs. Once again, Marika conquering stuff, rocking up to something already established but slapping her name on it and pretending that this was her discovery. Marika is vehemently against anything reminiscent of the Crucible. The Crucible represents a less evolved, non-adhering state where creatures have horns, wings, tails and feathers, all that defies the rules and order she sought to impose. And karma would come for Marika. She and Godfrey had 3 children, including twins Mohg and Morgott. These twins were born with an affliction. They were omens. Omens are marked by their twisted horns growing from various parts of their bodies. Traits are linked to the Crucible. And like I said, Marika doesn't like being reminded of the Crucible. Her reaction to omens was ruthless. Typically, omen infants had their horns chopped off, a procedure that often resulted in their death. Any who survived were then used as soldiers. However, royal omens faced a different fate. They were not mutilated, but instead hidden away to prevent them from disgracing their lineage. Royal omens were shackled underground in the sewers, out of sight, out of mind. Calling it the Omen Curse shows the stigma, how it became a social construct resulting from Marika's reign. Having wings and tails is not objectively a hindrance, but could be interpreted as a blessing. Morgott and Mohg both use them in battle, and they are glorious and powerful, but not to Marika, hence why she hid them, unbeknownst to anyone. As a side note, Morgott and Mohg are a fantastic character study of how two twins perceive their condition so differently. Mohg embraced his omen traits and their power, seeking to establish his own dynasty. He was besotted, infatuated with his condition, using it to his advantage. Morgott, on the other hand, tried to suppress the blood he was told was cursed. He adopted a pseudonym, Margit, to protect Leyndell and the Erdtree as the veiled monarch, hiding his horns out of shame, fear. Despite being cast aside by his mother and barred from the Erdtree, Morgott maintained an unwavering devotion. Godfrey's views on his Omen children are not documented, but as you encounter him in battle, he is seen cradling Morgott's body, the outcome of your previous fight, and he speaks to him fondly, mentioning how long it has been since they last saw each other. Morgott dies in his father's arms. I get a sense of a complex bond between the two that I'm sad not to see more of. This brings me to their third child, Godwyn. Unlike his siblings, Godwyn was not born an omen and is referred to as Godwyn the Golden. This title has a few interpretations. One could refer to his loyalty to the Golden Order, which Godwyn exemplified. The other interpretation comes from the term Golden Child, which indicates a perfect child, exceptional, talented, and seemingly flawless. Godwyn was indeed this golden child. He was powerful but fair, having protected the Erdtree from a fearsome battle against ancient dragons. Godwyn triumphed, felling the dreaded Vortisax and earning its friendship, establishing the ancient dragon cult and helping the capital access golden dragon incantations, all made possible by his victory and mercy. This family is referred to as the Golden Lineage, and it's easy to understand why Marika adored her son Godwyn so much. It would devastate her if something were to happen to him. Shifting the focus for a moment to another region, war was stirring in Liurnia, the western part of the Lands Between. The Carians ruled over this territory, with Queen Rennala as their leader. Marika had dispatched armies to the lakes, presumably for more conquering, and among these ranks was one notable individual, a champion with long flowing red hair. This was Radagon. Radagon fought Queen Rennala in battle, seemingly winning the first war. However, a second war occurred shortly after, and there was no clear victor this time. It's unclear whether this was due to a stalemate in abilities, or the two falling in love and ceasing their hostilities. Regardless, they got married, Radagon seeking forgiveness for his territorial aggression, swore his love to Rennala, and they went on to have 3 children. The order of these children's births is uncertain, but I do discuss this in an older Q&A video. Each sibling has a fascinating story, though most of their tales only unfold after one fateful night, but we'll get there in a moment. Marika continued to order her champions, including her husband Godfrey, to conquer and wage war. Godfrey fought and won countless battles, sieging Castle Morn and vanquishing the Stormlord. However, when Godfrey's last enemy fell, the light in his eyes disappeared. This golden light was called Grace, a blessing Marika once gave to all, but at that moment it was stripped from her husband and his warriors. She ordered them to wage war elsewhere, outside the Lands Between. They would likely die in this process, but return stronger. Marika's overall goal remains unclear, but it seems she was becoming more power-hungry. Her husband and his forces had already conquered as much of the Lands Between as possible. Now it was time to go further afield, total world conquest. Marika was confident in this process because at some point during her possession of the Elden Ring, she separated a particular fragment, the one responsible for death, the Rune of Death. She gave it to her loyal beast Malekith to protect, a similar being to Sarosh. The purpose of this was to grant the demigods immortality. This is what the Golden Order refers to, a reign where destined death, actual death, did not occur. To Marika, this was about growing strong in the face of death, living and dying, growing stronger, living again, and so on and so forth. So Godfrey agreed and began a long march out of the lands between. With him, he took his warriors, who were now called the Tarnished, those who had lost the golden grace in their eyes. He marched out to a faraway place called the Badlands, which, as its name suggests, is a savage place, a perfect grounds for endless battle practice. Meanwhile, back in the lands between, now that Godfrey had left, Marika was up to her usual shenanigans. She ushered her particular red-haired champion, Radagon, back to the capital, where she made him her king consort, taking a second husband. The wording of what happened here implies that Marika didn't technically divorce her husband Godfrey when he left the lands between, which means that Marika is engaging in polygamy. Radagon is referred to not as her new husband, but as her second husband. However, Rennala, Radagon's original wife, didn't react in the same casual way. She was heartbroken when Radagon left, devolving into lunacy and insanity upon his departure. Their relationship sounded like it definitely did come to an end. Whether Radagon truly loved Rennala in the first place is questionable. Some suspicions were raised about whether this was entirely a political marriage on Radagon's behalf, to stop the war, to learn the secret Carian magics and gain intel, etc. For Rennala, her reactions are very much in line with someone deeply in love, happily birthing 3 of his children and taking his departure as a massive shock. For Marika, it seems like she wanted to do this to gain more powerful individuals under her command and have more children while she was at it. When she and Radagon were wed, she actually took on his previous children, Rani, Rykard and Radahn, as her stepchildren, awarding them demigod status. In addition, she and Radagon had their own children, 2 of them, twins Melania and Mikola. However, both of these children were once again born cursed, although not with the Omen curse this time. Mikola was cursed with eternal youth, and Melania with scarlet rot that ate away at her flesh slowly. Despite their curses, these 2 children were born with incredible potential to be Marika's next heirs. This is what the term Empyrean means. Melania and Mikola, and one of Marika's non-biological children, Rani, were all considered powerful Empyreans. Now this is where stuff starts to hit the fan. Rani was not very happy about her fate being decided for her. She didn't want to be Marika's heir, she didn't want to follow the order of some gods, and she certainly didn't appreciate Marika effectively being a homewrecker and making her mother, Rennala, into a husk of the powerful sorceress queen she once was. So Rani, as you do, hired assassins and stole a piece of that death fragment to enhance their weapons. This meant that demigods could now die. Apparently, the assassins' targets were many. We don't know the extensive list of who perished in the Night of the Black Knives, but the first and foremost casualty was Godwyn the Golden. He was struck in the back, and at that exact moment, Rani perished as well. However, only in flesh. Her soul persisted and now inhabits a doll where she can no longer be controlled. Godwyn only perished in soul, his body persisting, but the mark of the assassin's blade bled into the earth and upsprang a plant called Deathroot. Godwyn the Golden was now Godwyn, Prince of Death. It's unclear if Marika saw Rani perish, but she most likely saw her golden child slip through her fingers, and with this, she was driven to the brink. She grabbed her trusty hammer, an item she had brought from her Numen background, raised it high, and smashed it into the Elden Ring. Marika didn't destroy it entirely, but she shattered it, meaning fragments and parts of it flew off. And like the Rune of Death, all these fragments had different powers and abilities of their own. Now they were spread throughout the lands between, where anyone could harness them now. And chaos ensued. 2 demigod royal children were dead, Marika was inconsolable, and there were these shiny powerful items falling from the sky. The Elden Beast, the being responsible for the Elden Ring, punished Marika by imprisoning her in the Erd Tree and practically crucifying her, so she could no longer put her hands on anything else. As for the Greater Will, the cosmic force influencing the world in the first place, decided to abandon the lands between. Marika had let them down, the world was in disarray, and frankly, they had better things to do. So they left, which is where you enter. The Tarnished that had previously been sent out of the lands between were now resurrected and called back. The guidance of grace had returned to them, so they began their long journey home. Despite being imprisoned, it seems that Marika still had some remnant of power left, enough to guide eligible Tarnished towards her through grace, a signal that she needed their help. She wanted to be free, even if that meant her death. In fact, maybe she wanted everyone to be free. However, her children were too busy fighting amongst themselves over power and runes to pay attention. Or they were too busy blaspheming, pursuing completely different goals in defiance of the world order. Which is why Marika condones you killing her demigod children in order to collect the runes, burn the Erd tree, and save her from her torment and potentially make a better world for everyone. Now, there is one massive aspect I have yet to mention, and that is Marika and Radagon's secret. So one day, a sculptor was hired to make a statue of Radagon, and while he was working on it, he saw something that he shouldn't have, something that was meant to be a secret. Unable to contain himself with what he had discovered, he left a message of his findings within the sculpture, and you can stumble across that same sculpture in the capital. When performing a specific spell in front of it, the statue of Radagon transforms into a statue of Marika with 3 simple words. Radagon is Marika. This is one of the most discussed topics in Elden Ring because it is a big plot twist, and people's interpretation of this short sentence seems to divide many people. Specifically, the timeline of events. Radagon is Marika is used in the present tense. But was this always the case? Has Radagon always been Marika? Let's break down what we know for sure and then we can speculate. When we enter the Erd tree in the final battle, we see Marika imprisoned, unmoving, unspeaking, impotent. Then the body reshapes into Radagon, blonde hair turning red, female melding into male. This confirms that they do indeed share the same body and can swap between them. But what exactly did that sculptor see that made him so sure of this? Perhaps Radagon started to turn into Marika but quickly stopped. The sculptor may have seen some mid-transformation, because if this was a real still life sculpting session, you would have the model sitting there as a reference while you work. You're not doing it from memory, and these things take hours to complete, so maybe there was a brief slip while Radagon was posing for his statue, which the sculptor noticed, and because of what he saw, this is the conclusion that he came to. It's really crucial to acknowledge the source of the information when analysing stories like these in FromSoft games especially. People can be wrong, especially if something says allegedly or it is rumoured. They can see one thing but misunderstand its meaning entirely. My point in saying this is that I believe the sculptor as a witness massively simplified what he discovered because he couldn't understand it. Seeing something like that would totally shatter your worldview. I am of the opinion that these two beings, Radagon and Marika, were separate but eventually became one, 2 souls in the same body. I don't think they were always the same being. The 2 of them fused at some point in their marriage. It would be symbolic of union and total trust. One of the most significant pieces of evidence supporting they had this kind of relationship is a quote from Marika that Melina tells you. Now, this is how I interpret these words.
O Radagon, leal hound of the Golden Order.
She begins by addressing Radagon, calling him a loyal dog of the Golden Order. She then says,
Thou art yet to become me. Thou art yet to become a god.
You have yet to become me, and you have yet to become a god. This is the key sentence, which we'll return to in just a second, but she finishes by saying,
Let us be shattered, both, mine other self.
She will shatter both of them, which indicates the timeline. At this point, they are in the same body, right before Marika caused the shattering. Now, she taunts him slightly when she says, You've yet to become me. It seems that Marika dictates when Radagon can take over their shared body. She's teasing him for thinking that he can try and control the both of them, that their union into one being is incomplete and probably will never be complete, and he will never become a god like her. This makes me think that the honeymoon period of them becoming one has started to wear off. They began fighting for power in the same body, but Marika always maintained the upper hand. That explains why she could shatter the Elden Ring without Radagon taking over and stopping her. I mean, she's telling him directly that she's going to do just that, but he is unable to do anything about it. Kind of reminds me of that Black Mirror episode where the mother gets put inside her partner's head and all she can do is watch as he lives out his life. However, Radagon can take control of the body during the final boss fight because Marika cannot move or use any of her powers because she was incapacitated for shattering the Elden Ring. Because of this, she could no longer hold Radagon back from becoming the pilot of the body again, which is why he fights us, and it is also why he is trying to repair the Elden Ring. These are just my thoughts on the logistics of sharing one body. I do agree that their relationship is incredibly mysterious. There are massive gaps in the story. For one, Radagon's backstory and existence in the first place, how these two beings were able to merge into one, and how they could have children if they possess the same body, if we follow conventional reproduction rules. I do think it is interesting that none of the demigod children have explicitly positive relationships with Marika. There is much more evidence that Radagon had more of an impact on his children. Radahn is proud of inheriting his father's red hair, and Miquella is constantly giving gifts back and forth between him and his father. Marika was doing all the queen stuff and ruling, and Radagon was the one caring for the children. The point is, this is a secret that only the sculptor and you know about. It's up to you to think about how, if at all, this changes things we already know about the story. Perhaps the reasons why come from Marika's Numen background, some abilities we're unfamiliar with. So at this point, I want to discuss the DLC and how it relates to the family tree. Everything I'm going to talk about is relating to trailers, key art, and interviews. I don't have early access, so most of this is speculation. If you don't want to hear any DLC talk, that's fine. Feel free to click off the video now. It's been really nice to have you. But for everyone else, let's talk about the setting of the DLC. We know from interviews that Shadow of the Tree takes place in a land previously obscured, and this is where Marika first set a foot and became a god. This is interesting because maybe we'll get some answers about why and how, and maybe more about her race, the Numen, but also who is this Mesmer character? Miyazaki confirmed that Mesmer is Marika's child. It's really cool that we get to see more of Marika's children, as she did have many, but I don't think Marika and Mesmer are on good terms. Could Mesmer be that unwanted bastard child that the spirits in the lands between refer to? Marika had first arrived in the Land of Shadow before settling into the lands between, then Mesmer would have been one of her first children, before marrying Godfrey and Radagon. So who is the father of Mesmer? He does have that signature red hair, which is intriguing. It would also support the theory that Marika and Radagon have always been one. If Mesmer is a result of their reproduction, Radagon does have that dominant red hair gene that persists in almost all of his children. But it could also be the universal sign of a cursed being. After all the children with M's in their name have a curse of some kind. The curse would also explain why Mesmer is unwanted. Is this why the inhabitants of the Land of Shadow refer to Marika as a betrayer? Because she abandoned her child? Is this why all of the statues are missing their heads? Marika, I can't keep defending you like this. In all seriousness, I did cover Marika from an entirely different perspective in this video, where you can view her more of a victim than a villain. It all depends if you believe if Marika was fully in control the whole time of her actions after becoming a vessel of the Elden Ring, because she could be a puppet on strings being controlled the whole time. I've seen interpretations of her statue being reminiscent of a marionette doll, with the greater will pulling the strings. Marika is a really interesting character that a lot of people interpret differently. A grieving mother, a power-hungry girl boss, a transmuting alchemical being. All I can say is that I'm so excited for the DLC. I have butterflies in my stomach, and I'm just thinking about all the potential mysteries that might get answered. New characters, new connections. Regarding videos around the DLC, I'll probably take a while to actually play the game and experience the story, mull things over, and I think it would be good if you do the same and come find me when you're ready. I also wanted to shout out today's thumbnail artist, MsLee. I couldn't think of a more perfect artist to capture the portrait style of the family. Please go follow them on Twitter at all_Lee24. Go give them some love for accommodating my request for 13 Elden Ring characters in this commission. Thank you, MsLee. And also thank you to everyone for watching and supporting me. You may have seen my post about getting gifted this wonderful replica of the Flask of Crimson Tears from Bandai Namco. It's still incredibly surreal to think that I was chosen as one of the few people to have got given this wonderful, wonderful, wonderful official gift. I still just can't put it into words what a weird feeling this is. I've been making videos pretty much since Elden Ring came out, and I like to think that I've improved a lot since then. I feel like I'm gaining more confidence in the way I speak, in the way I present my videos and my ideas. I'm just so incredibly grateful for all of you for watching these videos for whatever reason, whatever aspect you like about my videos. Cosplay, the way I speak, the way I present information. Sleepy time. I hope you're excited as I am for the DLC and will be patient while I try and retell the story to some of you. I think when this video goes up, the DLC will be out, so thank you everyone so much for watching. I'll see you later in the Land of Shadow, and a special thank you to my patrons and channel members.